Most people think they'd recognize someone with an extremely high IQ the moment they met them. Someone who's always confident, always has the right answer, always looks like the smartest person in the room. But psychology paints a very different picture. Some of the strongest signs of high intelligence don't look impressive at all. In fact, many people with exceptionally intelligent minds spend years believing there's something wrong with them. They replay conversations long after they're over. They question everything. They struggle to switch their mind off. They often feel different without ever understanding why. These aren't just random habits. Psychologists have studied many of these patterns for years, and together, they reveal a side of intelligence that most people never see. So before you assume you know what a highly intelligent person looks like, let's look at the signs that are almost impossible to fake. Number 1, their mind never really stops. Have you ever replayed a conversation hours after it ended? Not because anything went wrong, but because your mind keeps searching for a better answer, a better explanation, or a different outcome. Most people let conversations fade within minutes, but some people replay them again and again, almost like their brain refuses to file them away. From the outside, this often looks like overthinking. Friends might tell them to just let it go, but psychology suggests something more interesting may be happening. Highly intelligent minds don't simply collect information. They naturally keep working with it. Instead of accepting the first conclusion, they continue testing possibilities long after everyone else has moved on. What if I had said this instead? What was that person really trying to say? Did I miss something? This constant mental simulation isn't always intentional. It's the brain's way of searching for patterns, filling in gaps, and trying to understand situations from every possible angle. Research in cognitive psychology has long suggested that people with stronger analytical thinking often spend more time evaluating different possibilities before settling on an answer. The same ability that helps solve difficult problems can also make ordinary conversations surprisingly difficult to leave behind, and it isn't limited to conversations. A simple decision can become 10 different scenarios. A small mistake can become a lesson your mind keeps revisiting. Even moments that seem insignificant to everyone else can stay active in your thoughts long after they've been forgotten. This is why many highly intelligent people don't describe their minds as busy. They describe them as impossible to switch off. And while that constant thinking can become mentally exhausting, it also lays the foundation for something else that appears again and again in highly intelligent people, an almost relentless curiosity about how the world really works. Number 2, they rarely accept the first answer. There is a question that quietly follows highly intelligent people through almost every stage of life. Why? Not the polite kind of why, the kind that refuses to stop after the first explanation. Why do people behave this way? Why do we believe the things we believe? Why does one person stay calm under pressure while another falls apart? Most people are satisfied once they have an answer. Highly intelligent people often become interested the moment they realize there are 10 more questions hiding underneath it. That difference changes the way they experience almost everything. A conversation isn't just a conversation, it's a chance to understand how another person thinks. A disagreement isn't simply about proving who's right. It's an opportunity to test ideas, challenge assumptions, and discover whether there's a perspective they haven't considered yet. This is why many highly intelligent people ask questions that seem completely unrelated to everyone else. They're not trying to sound smart. Their brain is naturally looking beneath the surface, searching for the hidden patterns connecting one idea to another. Psychologists often describe this as epistemic curiosity, a deep drive to close the gap between what you know and what you don't. For some people, learning feels like a task. For highly intelligent minds, it often feels like an itch that refuses to go away until it's scratched. That's also why they can disappear down a rabbit hole for hours. A 5-minute search becomes an evening spent reading about history, neuroscience, space, or human behavior. Not because they need the information, but because understanding itself is rewarding. But that same curiosity comes with a hidden consequence. The more layers you discover beneath the surface, the harder it becomes to accept simple answers. And once you start seeing how complex people really are, you begin noticing something that most people completely miss. They speak less, but they observe far more than anyone realizes. Number 3, they notice what most people never see. One of the most misunderstood signs of high intelligence has nothing to do with solving equations or remembering facts. It shows up in silence. Have you ever been in a conversation where everyone else seemed focused on the words, but your attention drifted somewhere else? To the hesitation before someone answered, the slight change in their tone, the expression that lasted less than a second before they smiled. Most people hear what someone says. highly intelligent people often find themselves wondering what wasn't said. This is why they tend to speak less at first. Not because they have nothing to contribute, but because their brain is still collecting information. Before forming an opinion, they instinctively begin connecting small details that other people ignore: body language, voice, timing, and the emotional atmosphere in the room. Tiny pieces of information that seem meaningless on their own, but together begin forming a pattern. Psychologists often associate this with advanced pattern recognition. Rather than focusing on a single detail, the brain continuously compares new information with thousands of previous experiences, searching for similarities, inconsistencies, and hidden relationships. It's one of the reasons highly intelligent people often arrive at conclusions they struggle to explain. When someone asks, "How did you know?" the honest answer is often, "I don't know, I just noticed something felt off." The conclusion appeared long before the explanation did. Of course, this doesn't mean they're always right. Intelligence doesn't make someone incapable of mistakes. But it does mean their mind is constantly collecting evidence, even when they aren't consciously trying to. That's why they often seem quiet in group conversations. While everyone else is deciding what to say next, they're still observing, still connecting, and still trying to understand the deeper picture. And the more patterns they begin to notice, the harder it becomes to feel completely certain about anything. Because every new piece of information opens the door to another possibility. Which is exactly why many highly intelligent people end up doubting themselves far more than everyone expects. Number 4. The smarter you become, the harder certainty feels. Most people assume intelligence creates confidence. Psychology often suggests the opposite. The more your mind learns, the more it begins to realize how much it doesn't know. Imagine standing on the shore of an ocean. From a distance, it looks small, simple, but the closer you walk toward it, the more endless it becomes. Knowledge works in much the same way. Every answer uncovers another question. Every conclusion reveals another possibility. This is why highly intelligent people are often surprisingly comfortable saying, "I don't know," not because they lack knowledge, but because they've learned that reality is usually more complicated than it first appears. Psychologists often connect this idea to something known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with limited knowledge are more likely to overestimate how much they understand, while those with deeper understanding become increasingly aware of everything they still haven't explored. From the outside, this humility can look like uncertainty. Someone changes their opinion after hearing new evidence, and people assume they're indecisive. Someone admits they might be wrong, and others mistake it for a lack of confidence. But real intelligence isn't about defending every belief. It's about updating your beliefs when reality gives you a better answer. That takes something psychologists call cognitive flexibility, the ability to let go of old conclusions instead of protecting your ego. Ironically, this can make highly intelligent people question themselves far more than everyone around them. Before making a decision, they don't just ask, "What do I think?" They ask, "What if I'm missing something? What evidence would change my mind? Is there another explanation I haven't considered?" Their mind keeps testing its own conclusions, again and again and again. It can be exhausting. But it's also one of the reasons they continue growing, while others become trapped inside certainty. And over time, that way of thinking creates something few people ever talk about. Not pride, not superiority, but a quiet feeling of being fundamentally different from the people around them. Number 5. The loneliness nobody sees. There is a kind of loneliness that has nothing to do with being physically alone. You can be surrounded by friends, laughing at the same jokes, taking part in the same conversations, and still feel like no one is meeting the version of you that's happening inside your mind. Highly intelligent people are often described as enjoying solitude. Sometimes that's true, but not always for the reason people assume. It isn't that they dislike people, it's that they rarely find conversations that satisfy the way their mind naturally thinks. While everyone else is happy staying on the surface, their mind keeps drifting toward the questions beneath it. Why did that person react that way? What are they afraid of? What aren't they saying? Why do people repeat the same patterns over and over again? They don't just hear stories, they instinctively search for meaning. Over time, something quiet begins to happen. They stop sharing every thought that crosses their mind. Not because they have nothing to say, but because experience has taught them that most people aren't interested in going that deep. So they simplify themselves. They give the shorter answer. They keep the bigger questions to themselves. And eventually, people begin describing them as quiet, not realizing there's an entire conversation happening that nobody else can hear. Psychologists have long observed that intelligence doesn't only change the way people solve problems. It can also change how connected they feel to the people around them. Not because they're better than others, not because they're impossible to understand, but because they often process the world through a level of depth that isn't easy to share. Ironically, many highly intelligent people spend years believing something is wrong with them, wondering why they never quite feel like they fit, when the real problem isn't that they're incapable of connecting. It's that meaningful connection becomes much harder when your mind is constantly searching for conversations that go beyond the obvious. And perhaps that's one of the heaviest parts of intelligence. Not thinking more, but feeling like there are parts of yourself you've never fully been able to explain to anyone else. Number 6, the hidden cost of a mind that never stops there is one consequence of high intelligence that almost nobody talks about. It doesn't show up on an IQ test. It doesn't appear in grades. And from the outside, it often looks like someone who simply gets tired too easily. But the exhaustion isn't physical. It's mental. Imagine walking into a room where most people notice 5 things. Now imagine your brain automatically notices 50. The conversation, the tone, the facial expressions, the contradictions, the possibilities, the questions nobody asked, the answers that don't quite make sense. Your mind isn't just collecting information, it's trying to organize it, find meaning in it, connect it, question it. And it does this all day, often without you even realizing it. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as a higher cognitive load. Not because intelligent people are carrying heavier objects, but because their brain is continuously processing more information, more possibilities, and more relationships at the same time. The strange part is that this never really has an off switch. You finish one thought, and another quietly takes its place. You answer one question, and your mind immediately asks a better one. Even moments that are supposed to feel relaxing can become another opportunity to think, to analyze, to reflect, to understand. This is why many highly intelligent people don't describe their biggest challenge as thinking. They describe it as stopping the analysis, stopping the questions, stopping the endless search for one more answer. Ironically, the same mind that helps someone understand the world more deeply can also make it much harder to simply experience the present moment without dissecting it. Perhaps that's the hidden cost of intelligence. Not that you think more than everyone else, but that your mind rarely gives you permission to rest. And maybe the goal isn't to stop being the way you are. Maybe the goal is to understand that a mind built to question everything also deserves moments where it doesn't have to question anything at all. For years, you may have thought these habits meant something was wrong with you, that you overthought too much, questioned too much, felt too deeply, or simply experienced the world differently than everyone around you. But psychology often tells a different story. Sometimes the things you've spent years trying to hide are the very things worth understanding. And that's exactly why this channel exists. Not to hand out labels, not to tell you who you are, but to explain the hidden psychology behind the thoughts, habits, and behaviors millions of people experience, yet almost nobody can explain. If that's the kind of content you've been looking for, subscribe, because we've only just begun.